Welcome everyone to the Q&A session for our upcoming course, Deeper Dimensions of Medical Qigong, the 4-month journey into advanced mind-body practices and holistic coaching to sustain the power of medicine within. I'm Lisa Bonis, and it's my honor to be hosting this Q&A conversation for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of Dr. Roger Jahnke and address questions about his upcoming 4-month course, Deeper Dimensions into Medical Qigong, which begins Wednesday, February 14th. And a little later, I'll explain how you can participate in this course, even if you can't attend the live sessions. But first, I want to introduce our guest. Dr. Roger Jahnke is one of the most revered luminaries in the fields of mind-body practice, wellness, and integrative medicine. Dr. Jahnke, who's dedicated his professional life to sharing the powerful ancient healing traditions of China, is the director and chief instructor of the Institute of Integral Qigong and Tai Chi in Santa Barbara, California, and a co-founder of the National Qigong Association. With 30 years of clinical practice as a physician of acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine and 10 research tours to China, Dr. Jahnke has emerged as a key spokesperson for and master teacher of Tai Chi and Qigong. And in just a few moments, we're going to open up for your questions. But first, I want to bring Roger on the line. Welcome, Roger. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm thrilled to be here, and good morning or afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
I'm so glad you're able to make it. We have the rest of our time together to dive into the viewers' questions for Roger as we prepare for his upcoming course, Deeper Dimensions of Medical Qigong. And if you want to check out the website and learn more about the 4-month course, you can visit medicalqigongadvanced.com to see the full descriptions. So what do you think? You ready to get started with some questions?
Yes, I'm on the edge of my seat, excited about it.
All right, great. So if our viewers have a question for Roger, go ahead and type them in, and I'll be happy to read them aloud. And let me start out with one. I'm sure you're not surprised because this is about medical Qigong and you are a doctor, et cetera. A lot of people, in fact, I'd say the majority of our questions are people asking for medical advice. And obviously we can't do that. You're not diagnosing anyone. You have to be careful what you say. But let's just sort of a blanket question. What medical issues can Qigong help and what doesn't it work so well for?
Yes, good. So, we have in our society, we have a phrase that says there are no panaceas. And so we basically have agreed to agree with that, not knowing any other way to think about it. However, I would say as a doctor of Chinese medicine with 35-year clinical practice and a deep investigation of Chinese medicine in China, and many, many patients who have been, shall we say, I don't want to say disappointed in Western medicine. What's the best way to say it? Just like would like to see what else can happen, what additional improvement could be gained in certain types of disorders and so forth. And so my experience is that anyone who does Qigong on a regular basis will experience some improvement in no matter what their challenge is. Now, I'll offer a couple of caveats. If a person is in a circumstance where they're, at the final moments of their life, it may not be possible to utilize the Qigong methodologies that one can use for oneself, in the final moments or final days of one's life. However, I can say that people who practice Qigong in their life typically have a different kind of life conclusion. And so that's a fascinating idea. Now, there's another kind of person who would potentially not benefit. And you'll see when I say it that it doesn't have anything to do with the disease that the person has, or the fact that Qigong could support that individual in having more comfort, less distress, and less symptoms. And it goes like this. As a doctor, I have had the experience of meeting people who I was absolutely positive had everything going for them, who died. In other words, everything was in place for that individual to utilize acupuncture and herbal medicine, make some dietary changes, and thrive. And that did not happen. And I've also been in a relationship, clinical relationship, with people that I was absolutely positive were pretty much not going to be able to survive, who did survive. And so what this points to is that there's something beyond what we know or what we think we understand as humans or intellectual humans or humans with, thousands and thousands of years of experience, where our best training cannot predict an outcome. And so besides the people that I just described, the people who are basically, just have they're up against the last days of their life, and this other one that I just described, which I call the destiny factor. In other words, the person could have done pretty much anything, but their destiny was otherwise. Everyone else who does Qigong with sincerity and intention, who actually does the practice, experiences some kind of health improvement. So that could be an immense amount of health improvement where a difficult disorder is resolved completely and the person just goes forward into the rest of their life. Or it could be that in a difficult case, a person has better sleep, better energy, less pain, improved digestive function, and so forth. And then let me say one more thing about this, and that is that what Qigong does is activate naturally occurring internal self-regulatory mechanisms. So let me say that again. What Qigong does is activate naturally occurring internal health-generating or functional mechanisms. So it doesn't matter what a person's diagnosis is. What matters is that they're turning on what we call the healer within, or the medicine within. The most profound medicine is produced within the human body for no cost. So turning on the medicine within is huge. And most people have been depending on their medicines and their medical procedures and haven't done much about turning on the medicine within or the healing capacity within. And so when they do, it has a positive benefit. And the last little note is that we don't know what's going to happen first. So the intelligence of the human system is so as yet unknown. We know a lot about human beings, but we don't know anywhere near everything about human beings. And so we could say, if you do this practice, you're going to start sleeping better right away. And then the person will say, well, I didn't start sleeping better right away, but my digestion really improved immediately. Or the other way around. Or a person who has pain might say, my pain is not really improving, but my sleep is improving and my digestion is improving. And of course, as a person feels better, they have the capacity to make different decisions and have different activities. So a person that's feeling a little better from doing Qigong might increase their exercise program, or they might make better nutrition decisions, or you know what I mean. So I'll leave it there. But the main answer to the question is that, and I know this from experience because I've been doing this for going on 50 years, that people who do Qigong with purpose and intent, carving out time and actualizing the practice, and that's what our time together in this course is going to be, is an extended support system for actualizing practice and for having support in generating, shall we say, alternative decision patterns in one's life. So I'll leave it there. And what a fantastic question. Thank you. And one more thing. You're right. None of this course will be about diagnosing. So in other words, you know your diagnosis, you know your challenges, you can discuss those freely, you can bring those up as a part of our Q&A session. You can even say, my diagnosis is that I have a liver challenge, and then you wouldn't expect me to give you a treatment or to confirm that diagnosis, but what I can do is support you with very, very useful information about how to, shall we say, nourish the liver through Qigong practice and through hydration and rest and meditation and relaxation and getting into nature and making nutrition choices and so forth. Okay, back to you.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I also want to clear up a mistake I made. I said it begins Wednesday, February 14th, and brain fart. It's actually Wednesday, February 5th. So a little sooner than I thought.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on here. Thank you for covering that. Sophia wants to know, do we need to work with someone else, like a practitioner such as yourself, while the course is ongoing, or can we do it with just the course?
Excellent. Excellent. Yes. Okay. So I would say that if you have the time, the inclination, and the resources to complement this course with spending some time with any kind of doctor you wish, or a massage therapist, chiropractors, osteopaths, any kind of body therapy, homeopathy, herbalism, specific nutrition, functional medicine, acupuncture, physical therapy, all of those are very powerful natural healing methodologies. And even if you're working with a conventional physician and you want to get some blood work, let's say you have a fairly significant health challenge and you've had blood work recently, well then, don't bother to get more blood work now. But when we get towards the end of the course, you might want to review your blood work. It's interesting, blood work doesn't always change even though a person is feeling better. So I have to leave this up to you. I think it's an excellent question. I think it's an excellent strategy. And for most people, will have the circumstance where they've seen a doctor, they know what their health status is, and so they're going to just go at this course as a complement without necessarily accelerating their relationship with a medical practitioner. But there's nothing that says that that's a bad idea, and much that says that that's a really good idea, but not necessary.
All right, thank you. Let's do a question here from Tasha, who wants to know, how does energy held in the lower dantian affect the organs?
Yeah, this is a complex issue because when we say energy, we could mean a lot of things. And so it gives us an opportunity to say something about what the Chinese mean when they say qi. Qi is a factor in the universe which is never not present. So in a living being, qi is manifesting and engaged in activity and processing and function. In a tree, the qi is tree qi manifesting as a biological function. And you know what kinds of seasons a tree goes through. It'll lose its leaves and look like it's dead, and then it comes back to life, and flowers come out, and then fruit comes on it. And it's the same with humans. There are a lot of expressions of this thing that the Chinese call qi, that we in the Western world use the word energy to describe. And so everything that's going on with a person, let's talk about what we call the three treasures. There are many definitions of the three treasures. We'll go into the details of that in the course, of course. And as you probably know by now, as you sign up for this course, you're also going to be receiving a former course of 7 weeks that has a lot of conceptual information with it that you can, I think you can begin to catch up on as soon as you register for this course. And so the three treasures are three aspects of a human. And one of those aspects is the body. Second aspect of the three treasures is what we call in the Western world we call mind and emotions, or thoughts being mind and emotions being feelings. And so that's an expression of the qi. And then there's another aspect of ourself, the third treasure, which is called the transcendental, the transpersonal, the spirit, the soul. And these three parts of ourselves are the foundation of Chinese medicine and Chinese philosophy. And this course is based on the idea of enhancing and nourishing and integrating these aspects of ourself. So with that in mind, allow me to repeat your question and reveal why it's a difficult question. Because when you say hold energy in the lower portion of the body, sometimes called the lower dantian, dantian means the lower field of the body's capacity to make medicine. The middle field is at the level of the heart and associated with the individual's mental emotional self. And creating a dantian means an elixir field, a field where medicine is made and stored. So in the middle dantian, we can make and store the medicine of the mental emotional self. And as you can see, this is a paradigm, a way of looking at human beings that's very different than the Western world. And then the upper dantian, which is associated with in yoga, it would be called the third eye, the pineal gland, the brain. The third dantian in Chinese medicine is associated with the transcendental aspect of ourself, which is unlimited in time and space, whereas the body and the mind are limited in time and space. So then the question was, when one retains energy in the lower dantian, which can also be called the lower processing area, because there's the large and small intestine are down there. At the top portion of your abdomen, in the back, is your liver, and in your kidneys, and in the front is your liver and your spleen and your pancreas. And so there's a lot going on down here. So that when you say retaining energy in the lower portion of the abdomen, it could mean so many things, because some people hold emotional energy in the lower portion of their abdomen. Some people hold what I would call traumatic memory in the lower portion of the body. Some people just have ruined their digestive function, their large and small intestine, with, passing all kinds of horrifying garbage through their body. Some people have dysentery, or have had dysentery at some point in their life. Everything about this part of the body is very dense with what we call the biome. And so now we're talking about the good bacteria and the bad bacteria and all the stuff that goes on in the digestive system. So if the question is, will Qigong help with this? The answer is yes, because as I said earlier, Qigong has the capacity to help the body in its functional capacity. And when you bring purpose and intent, plus movement and breath and mind focusing and self-applied massage to your life, there's going to be some kind of improvement. We don't know what order the improvement will happen in, so we can't say, oh, well, you have a belly problem, so yeah, do the practice and your belly problem is going to go away first. We can only say that the Qigong will maximize function, will also support you in making better decisions, being in a relationship with other people who are doing this practice also, that is, people with shared values. All these things are going to be contributing. And remember, part of the title is holistic coaching. And so we're not just talking about doing Qigong. We're talking about doing Qigong, being mindful in our lives, turning our attention not just to the practice of breath practice and adjusting the posture and moving the body and doing meditation and doing self-applied massage. Those are the 4 dimensions. The earlier course was called The 4 Dimensions of Medical Qigong. We're talking about the deeper dimensions of medical Qigong. So in this particular course, we're going to be working not only with Qigong practice, but also getting into a relationship with other people who have shared values, and at the same time using a process that we call the circle of life. And the circle of life is you could call it a coaching program, you could call it a holistic life planning program. And so we'll be not only looking at stress management through meditation and stress reduction and breath practice, and exercise through moving the body and meditation. We'll also be talking about all the other aspects of life, including our rest, hydration, relationships, and creativity, by the way, and much more. So, wow, that was a lot of blather. The key is that from the perspective of Chinese medicine, the most profound healing resource is in you. It's not just a thing, like you drink it out of a bottle. The physical self is made up of chemistry. We understand that. But there's also the entire self, the whole self, which includes the mental emotional self and the transcendental self, as well as the physiological self. So we're bringing a lot of intent and focus to this. It doesn't matter what the diagnosis is, because in Chinese medicine, the cure is based on aligning and integrating and bringing coherence to the physical self, the mental emotional self, and the spiritual self.
Okay, wow, thank you. These are very layered questions, so I appreciate your taking the time to sort of unpack this. And
You.
speaking of layered questions, here's another one. Um, Nan is asking, what's the ideal length of time one would have to engage in every day to gain progress for people who actually have serious illness but are still able to function in jobs but not desirable employment?
Wow. You're right about the layers. But I think that the bottom line on this question is about time. And so let's just let it be about how much is required to make progress. So, what we know at the Institute of Integral Qigong and Tai Chi, because we have trained uh, close to 2,000 people as teachers and practice leaders. And in addition, those teachers and practice leaders, including myself, have led people in Qigong practice and taught people Qigong practice for decades in the numbers of probably hundreds of thousands of people. And we have a concept that's called bell curve. Bell curve means that some people are going to jump in and be on it 100% from day one. The other side of the bell curve is someone who's interested in the possibility, has never done this before, has no idea what to expect, and believes that they have no time. So this person is going to, has already probably got a practice, and they're in our class, and they're going to be pretty on top of it right away, utilizing the practices in a number of minutes per day that they have already arrived at as a, shall we say, a preferred practice for them. And then we're going to have others who have never done this before and who may be pretty unwell. And like yourself, speaking for yourself, or anybody that you may have been speaking for, the amount of time that you have is eaten up by the fact that you're working at a job that you don't even particularly prefer. And so that's a difficult circumstance. Now, if that person buys in at the level of, oh my gosh, this is it, I am on, then that person will probably be doing somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes of practice every day. If a person is taking this course as a curiosity, and particularly is the kind of person, and I'm not saying that you are, but there are these kinds of people who'll say, well, prove it, show me. So now we need some of the weeks to be able to develop a sense of understanding on the part of the person so that they feel like it's worth it to do the practice that they're going to need to do to be able to get the results. If you could somehow convince yourself of jumping in forthrightly right away, that would put you on the side of this discussion that has to do with people who, shall we say, I'll just use the idea bought in. They've bought in. They say, like, I've checked it out. There's value here. I'm buying in. And so that person is ready to go right away. For a person who's not ready to go right away, who needs rationale, please go to when you buy into this course, please go to the first 7 weeks and really get going on understanding the rationale and some of the practices. So now another way to answer this is that people who do not believe that they have time, or who have physical challenges or emotional challenges, like anxiety or whatever it might be, traumatic stress, you may need to start with a tiny little bit of practice only on the day that we're meeting in the class. And then at some point, you may reach the point where you say, oh, yeah, you're right. This is probably not going to work anywhere near as well if I just do it during the class as if I was doing it every day. But I don't really have time. So now I'm going to be doing it every day, but I'm not going to be doing it much because I don't believe I have time. And then later you might say, well, why am I hesitating? Why am I waiting to get the benefit of this experience? I'm going to do this I'm going to carve out a chunk of time every day. So what I would say, people ask me this question all the time, and everybody's so different, and it's really difficult to pin it down. But I would say, in general, if you can do a practice of 20 minutes almost every day a week, you will begin to develop a sense of the fact that the practice has a value. And as soon as you get to the point where you believe that the practice has value, then it's very likely that you're going to say, well, I could do 30 minutes. And I'll just, as a comparison, I'll tell you how they do it in China for people who are well enough to be in a practice for 1 hour, like in a hospital or wherever they might be. It's usually an hour. If you go to see people doing these practices in the park, you'll see that they are in the park for about an hour. So walking and breathing is a kind of Qigong. And so they walk into the park, hit the clock there. It starts a process of about 60 minutes. They connect with their friends. Qigong is social. So we have a social part of our class, which is the breakout rooms and the Facebook page. And so you'll be able to connect with other people and have discussions with them about their wins and losses and disappointments and victories. And then do the practice for probably 40 to 45 minutes. This is Chinese person in the park. Do the practice for 40 to 45 minutes. Then wrap up and say goodbye to your friends, carry on brief conversations about this or that, and then walk briskly out of the park. Now that whole hour is considered Qigong, because Qigong is social and interacting with other people is very powerful. Maybe you know that one of the most interesting findings in science in the last 5 years is that the more social interactions a person has predicts the level of their health and well-being. So having Qigong plus the social aspect all be included in what we're calling the healing modality, and then having the walking, because you're walking around all the time, and as you begin to develop a sense of how to bring Qigong into your walking, that'll be a part of your practice too. And then the last thing to say is that people ask this question, and I'll answer it now. Well, can I break it into smaller parts? And the answer is yes. Many people do Qigong while they're doing other things, including driving a car and answering emails and talking on the phone. If we adjust our breath, relax our shoulders, and bring ourselves to the conversation in a I don't want to say hysterical, but you know what I mean. In a non, let's just call it mildly hysterical way. In other words, if we can separate from the emotion of the whatever's going on, remember the posture, remember the breath, then that's Qigong too. So you can break it down. However, if you're breaking it down into smaller parts and talking on the phone and being hysterical, that's not Qigong. Thank you. That's a great question. They're all great questions.
They are, and great answers. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to remind everybody if you're just joining us, we're here with Dr. Roger Jahnke learning about his upcoming course, Deeper Dimensions of Medical Qigong, which begins Wednesday, February 5th. And you can log on to medicalqigongadvanced.com for all the details and to register. So let's go ahead and get back into these great questions here. I'd actually like to combine two questions because they're very related. First, we've got someone here asking, why do people crave foods that are bad for them? And then let's add this question. Could you please give us some specific directions as to how to detect and stop self-sabotaging attitudes and beliefs that underlie our behavior and restrict our progress in life?
Yeah, those are great. And by the way, I just want to be sure that people understand when you say medical Qigong advanced, that the word Qigong is right at the top of the page there, Qigong. So two ways into this question, and we'll come in both ways. The first way is the practical way, which is how is it that we get all tangled up in our behaviors and our patterns of thinking and our habituations, and we all have them, and then if you were to put these on a scale by volume, some people have massive piles of complex attitudinal and behavioral challenges that lead them to make poor choices in food, exercise, relationship, work, everything that there is about our lives. And so in the modern world, we use a phrase called pattern interruption. Pattern interruption. And deciding to take a course in something that you feel is compelling may already be a pattern interruption. Then, when the course suggests that there's a certain, shall we say, value in doing a set of practices, and then you do those practices, that's a pattern interruption. And so as we interrupt patterns, at the same time as maximizing function, the interface between shift in patterns, which we're going to show here as a rising line, like as if it's on a graph, and then we put in new behaviors that are also rising, these two are going to start to push on each other. The fact that you're doing a practice and shifting your internal environment, not just physically, but mental, emotionally as well, over time, plus the fact that you're making decisions all the time. So as you begin to look at the feeling that you're having of having the potential to make a change in your being, that's exciting. That's positive. So then when you open the refrigerator and look in there, what are we usually doing when we're looking in the refrigerator? It's almost never because we're hungry. It's always because we're bored, anxious, and looking for a way to be able to either have more energy or put ourselves to sleep. And that's a big generalization, and I wouldn't say that about myself when I go to to munch on a dark chocolate covered almond, shall we say. But the magnitude of the number of almonds, dark chocolate covered almonds, and I've convinced myself that almonds are good and that dark chocolate is good, and the dark chocolate has less sugar in it, it's less inflammatory, and almond is a protein, and there's a lot of, shall we say, ways to be able to describe that particular snack as being better than soft drinks and cheese doodles or whatever it might be. So the point that I'm making is that as you do the practice, as you shift, as you interrupt patterns by taking a class, and then interrupt patterns by implementing some of the things in the class, then you are already on a roll to interrupt patterns. At some point, you probably bump in to a part of yourself to say, look, I have fixed this up enough. I need a break. I want to just have a day off. Well, then you take a day off. That's sometimes called a cheat day. And it's not really cheating, because if you're on a program for 6 days in a week, and then you give yourself a cheat day to just sort of take refuge in your old behaviors and patterns and loves. I mean, we're disassociating from things that we love in our life, or that we've become habituated to. Now, that's the kind of bottom-up version of this. There's also a top-down version, and it's beautiful. And it goes like this, that there is an aspect of ourself which in most traditions or societies call the preferred self. And the preferred self is not as close to our daily self as it is to our, what we could call, spiritual self. So then, if we say that Qigong is about integrating the body, the mind, and the spirit, what happens when we do the practice? It takes us towards that integration. And as the spiritual self is invited in, now we could ask the question, isn't the spiritual self already in us? Yes. So I said it wrong. If the spiritual self is invited to come forward, if we create a vessel with purpose and intent, wherein the spirit aspect of being, which is closer to the preferred self than the habituated self, it's very likely that the preferred self will begin to express more. Now, I think it's pretty fair to say that the spiritual aspect of ourself is typically the most neglected aspect of ourself. So that as we balance and harmonize the function of the physical self, and as we manage some of the difficulties that drive us to our behaviors at the level of our mental emotional self, which includes attitudes and feelings and assumptions. And let me give you a clue right now. Have you ever noticed that you've retired certain assumptions? Like, I'll give you one of my assumptions. Drinking a huge amount of beer is an expression of a kind of power. So that would be myself in high school and college, demonstrating my power by drinking more beer than anybody around. And that was an assumption. And I've changed that assumption. I'll tell you another assumption. I thought my parents were idiots. I've been a parent, and now I have a child who's a parent. And it's absolutely clear to me that parents are not idiots. So as we go into a process like this, we have the capacity to integrate the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual self and begin to reveal the presence of the most neglected aspect of our being, which is the aspect which is closer to what we would call the preferred self. I don't want to say the perfect self, because that just doesn't sound right to say. So we'll say the preferred self. So the bottom-up version is that patterns will change because of the fact that changing patterns helps to change patterns. And as you feel yourself becoming more powerful and more integrated, you have more courage and you come to be attracted to the benefit of feeling better. And then the top-down version is that as we do the practices, we're actually bringing our attention to the process of creating moments in our lives where we're less distressed and therefore more able to feel the presence of our eternal nature. And, when we say our better angels, you've probably heard that phrase, our better angels. Well, we have our little devils, and we have our less better angels, and then we have our better angels. And the concept of being more conscious purposefully of the presence of our better angels and having a discussion with ourselves about these things is central to the Qigong paradigm.
All right, thank you for that. I'm looking at the clock here. We have time for one or two more questions, but before we take those, I want to go ahead and answer some questions about the course. People are sending those in, so I'll go ahead and do that. Once again, it's called Deeper Dimensions of Medical Qigong, and this is going to be just a fascinating 4-month journey with Roger and his expert guidance, where you'll activate your own inner elixir to deepen into radical and unexpected inner healing in the moment, anytime and anywhere. The 4-month course takes place on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, starting Wednesday, February 5th. And if for any reason you can't join us live, you won't miss the teachings. You'll receive audio and video recordings, transcripts, and all course handouts on your course homepage. Also, I'd like to remind everyone that we offer a no-risk money-back guarantee on our courses, giving you a full 2 weeks until February 19th in this case to make sure that you absolutely love it. And as an added option, as Roger mentioned, all participants are welcome to connect in a private Facebook community group. And this advanced intensive builds upon the core teachings, as he mentioned earlier. It was the 4 Dimensions of Medical Qigong 7-module course. And when you register for this, the full 4-month intensive, you will get instant access to this downloadable, that's videos and transcripts resource as well. Also, everyone who registers receives the Deeper Dimensions of Medical Qigong bonus collection. First, you'll receive a video presentation from Dr. Roger Jahnke of his groundbreaking Mayo Clinic Integrative Medicine keynote. Then you'll get a video teaching from Roger called Flowing Motion. Also, you'll receive an audio dialogue with Roger and Michael Gelb entitled How to Ignite and Sustain the Fire of Genius. And when you register by midnight Pacific on Thursday, January 23rd, you'll receive this extra gift, and that's a collection of 5 recording selections with transcripts from the 2019 Qigong Global Summit. Plus, you'll also receive the bonuses that were included in the introductory 7-module course that's called 4 Dimensions of Medical Qigong. And in addition to Dr. Jahnke's transformative 4-month training, including complete demonstrations and practice sessions, you will have access to an additional comprehensive medical Qigong video series called the Healer Within Medical Qigong Library. So lots and lots of stuff that you'll get along with this course. So before we get back into questions, Roger, let me ask you, what are you most looking forward to sharing in your upcoming course?
Yeah, I hope you don't mind. I have to ask one question. I thought that this course was at noon on Wednesdays. Not that you can make any changes at this very, very moment.
No, you know what? As I was saying it, I was thinking, oh, was that another typo? It is noon. I'm so sorry. I'm getting the date and the time wrong. Yes. So you were right.
I mean, it doesn't matter because everything's available, on the recordings. So time shouldn't really matter too much. But yeah. So now, would you ask me that question again?
Yeah, I was basically just wondering if you could tell us what you're most looking forward to sharing in this specific upcoming course.
Okay, so here's, my thing, shall we say. My thing is not necessarily Chinese medicine, Chinese philosophy, Chinese culture, Qigong, my thing is that human beings have a birthright to be as well as their natural capacity will allow them to be. And I think that this is not just about healing, but it's also about creativity and expressing ourselves fully. Some people might say, I'm actually shy and I'm held up by that. So we don't think of that as a medical challenge. And yet Qigong is very, very powerful, having an influence on supporting an individual in recognizing their own power. In our society, now let's just take the medical part of this. In our society, we spend over $3 trillion a year treating preventable diseases. Most of the people on this call who have health challenges have a health challenge that is inherently preventable. And so our society wastes trillions of dollars. And there's research that shows that over 80% of all disease is preventable. So when you do the math, it turns out that over $2 trillion could be reallocated by the citizens of this country who simply just prevent preventable diseases. So you might say, well, that sounds like economics, or that sounds like politics. Yeah, well, we are all economic players. And I would rather stay out of party politics and participate in cultural transformation. And so I see this course as not only being a powerful opportunity for people to improve their well-being, no matter how sick they are, and no matter how well they are. And I also have a really strong feeling about the fact that this is it's a way for the citizens to take action that's less frustrating than being all tangled up in politics. And the truth is that I love to be with people who love Qigong, because Qigong it's an exercise, it's a meditation, but it's also philosophical, and it also has a reverence for spiritual ideas. So, yeah, thank you for asking.
Yeah, I know I'm looking forward to this. This has been a fascinating conversation. We only have enough time for one quick question. Of course, none of these are quick, but let's see if we can squeeze this one in. This is Morgan. You've sort of answered this already. Morgan says, I feel unwell pretty much all of the time and have for as long as I can remember. My doctors can't find anything wrong. I've tried so many different things. Is this common, and do you suppose that medical Qigong can help me?
It's not very common, Morgan, and I'm so sorry. As I said earlier, as a doctor, I've had a lot of opportunity to meet with people whose challenges are like yours. These are sometimes they're called XYZ diseases, because they don't really have what medicine can discover is a cause, or the symptomology cannot be utilized as a way to determine a treatment, or the blood work comes back and it's not that abnormal. Now, I would suggest that you look into what we call functional medicine. Functional medicine is a big step up from what we would call conventional medicine. And during our course, we're going to be doing a lot of what functional medicine is all about, which is addressing the person, not the disease. And so we're looking at the functional aspect of being. And as I've said several times, Qigong accelerates function. So when a person who hasn't felt well for a really long time goes to the doctor and can't get much guidance, But then the doctor doesn't say, you need to pay attention to enhancing your function. If the doctor never says that and just says, well, we don't know what to do, then the patient becomes a victim of the lack of insight of the medical provider, because medicine is really intended for people who are in urgent situations. For people with chronic, ongoing challenges, medicine doesn't really do much anyway. And it doesn't really matter who. It could be, okay, so we believe that cancer can be cured by certain medical procedures and surgeries and so forth. But why is it that the doctors who are doing those surgeries are not telling people to do Qigong and Tai Chi, yoga and meditation? They're so complementary. They're so powerful in engaging the aspects of the functional self that when the patient goes home depressed because the doctor says, I can't help you, they're not doing anything. In fact, they're probably becoming less engaged in their life and so forth. So I feel very strongly, without being able to make any kind of guarantee, I need to say for sure, I'm not going to be diagnosing people in this course, even though I'm a doctor, and I am not going to be making declarations about how things are guaranteed, because there's too much unique. There are too many unique features about every human being at all the levels, the physical level, the mental, emotional level, and the spiritual level. But when we go to the process of enhancing function and integrating function of the three treasures, the body, the mind, and the spirit, it is a marvel. And I've been in the presence of thousands of people who have had these benefits. So, and I'm biased. I can't help it, because my experience suggests that humans are more powerful than they're allowed to know from their society, typically from their family, typically from their medical institutions. And so where does a person get the experience of their own power? And of course, Qigong is a power tool for giving us an experience of our own power. And what I can tell you for sure is that from day one, and in fact, if you haven't been in this course before, go back to the former courses, there are piles and piles of practices and insights and ways of thinking and so forth that are going to make your experience of life different in some way, some positive way, and very, very likely in a large way.
All right. Wow. Well, thank you so much for that response. This has been just a fascinating hour. I want to thank our viewers for being with us today and for all of your great questions. Once again, Deeper Dimensions of Medical Qigong starts Wednesday, February 5th, and it will be at noon Pacific time. Forget everything I said that's other than that. And also, you can visit medicalqigongadvanced.com to register. So, Roger, do you have any final words for our viewers before we go?
Yeah, because this is not only personal, it's social, and it has to do with our culture, and our culture is in a difficult time, maybe lately, maybe not just now, but maybe lately, and part of it is that our society tends to disempower people, and it tends to give the power to the medical industrial complex, and so most people don't know how powerful they are. And so if you know anybody who you think could benefit from this course, definitely spread the word, bring friends. My idea is that we have thousands of people in this course. And I used to think that doing courses on the internet was not going to be successful. And I was wrong. I have now done many courses online, and the level of engagement that can happen with the Q&A sessions that we're having, like this one, the practice sessions and the knowledge bases of a course, but then the Facebook page. Every one of my courses had a very dynamic Facebook page where you're not only invited to ask questions, but you're also invited to answer them. And at the end of each course session, we will also have breakout rooms. And typically we have like couple of hundred people who are in breakout rooms with 3 or 4 other people having vibrant and dynamic conversations about practice and how things are going and things that are working and things that aren't working. And it's very, very powerful. Thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you soon.
All right. Wow. Well, thank you again, Roger. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today. And once again, I want to thank everyone who joined us today. On behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or perhaps another one in the future. Have a great day, everyone.